Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Town of Halifax Finance Committee for Monday, November 26, 2018. The time is 7:02. We're being recorded by Area 58. On tonight's agenda, discussion with Frederick McGovern, induction of Adrian McDougall, liaison appointments, funding for redesign town website, mail, reserve fund transfer and line item transfers, meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2018, bills, review, discussion of articles with selectmen, public participation, calendar, and adjournment. One change to the agenda. We received notice before the meeting that Adrian McDougall is withdrawing her application to serve on the Finance Committee. So we will skip over that agenda item tonight. But we will start with talking to Mr. McGovern. Hi. So why don't we, I know we sort of informally introduced ourselves, but we can go around the table, introduce ourselves again, not only for you, but for the folks at home. And also maybe do a sentence or two on our background and how we got into the Finance Committee, just to get a sense of the different places we all come from.
Yep.
So Len, do you want to?
Sure. So my name is Len Tassino. It'll be my first full budget season on the Finance Committee. I previously served on the capital planning. I have a degree in finance. I have an MBA, work in finance. Grew up in Plimpton, moved to Halifax a couple of years ago, and just decided to get involved. So here I am.
Same story, same degree, except I've been working in operations for the past 20 years and manufacturing the 20 years before that.
This will be my second budget cycle with the committee. I joined the committee directly. I am a professor of political science and public administration. That's what my doctorate's in as well.
Hi, my name is Diane Roxton. I live in Halifax. I am a human resource specialist. I won't say where. I've been on this committee for 3 years. I was a transfer from wage and personnel.
So we can tell you a little bit about what we do, and then we'll have plenty of time for you to ask us any questions, and not just from, welcome to ask questions of any and all of us. So the Finance Committee serves as in an advisory capacity. Have you ever been able to attend a town meeting or a special town meeting? Okay, great. So that you've seen that the Finance Committee will pose recommendations or refuse recommendations on particular articles, but ultimately it's up for the voters to decide. Each member of the Finance Committee is assigned to several liaisonship positions. So they are interacting directly with department heads as budgets come up and as budgets are developed. The Finance Committee member who is the liaison interacts with that department head and then is able to fill in information or answer questions back at the Finance Committee meetings about those budgets. That person's not a representative for that department. They are not an advocate for that department. They're merely there to clarify anything increases or decreases that we see. We will still call in department heads into meetings for clarification or if there's major requests that are being made. But those liaisonships do help to provide additional information, especially as we're having larger budget discussions as we get closer and closer to town meeting. We meet the second and fourth Monday of every month. Meetings start at 7 p.m. When we're not ramping up to the budget process around now in the winter time, our meetings are generally an hour to an hour and a half. As we get closer to town meeting and as we put the budget together, the meetings do get a bit longer, and we might we tend to add in other Monday night meetings, but we hold them to Monday nights.
Yeah, I noticed the schedule from last year.
Okay, great. Do you have any questions? Because I know you are familiar with town meeting, you've seen sort of what it does.
I'm pretty familiar with what goes on, and I've attended like Silver Lake school committee meetings, so I actually know some of the people that are on that committee over there as well. So the bottom line was I've been looking to get involved in something for a while. I'm actually working on my second master's degree, so it's always been, well, how can you possibly fit that in? Not to mention I work for a Fortune 500 company, and they're always like, hey, you really shouldn't do elected positions. They don't have a problem with like volunteering commissions and that sort of stuff. But there was always that concern where if you were on an elected committee, there might be some kind of conflict of interest sort of thing. So with me wrapping up my degree, I thought, well, this would be a good time to see what was out there. And based on discussions that I started on Facebook, and I know Kendra Kelly, and she was saying, oh, they could always use the help in the Finance Committee, and it seemed to make sense since I have, degrees in mathematics. I'm working on a degree in analytics. I work for a Fortune 500 insurance company. I develop applications for financial management reporting. I used to be an actuary a long time ago, so I do have a little bit of a history in finance, so I thought this would be a good fit.
Great. And I think it's important that you brought up the idea of the conflict of interest. And one thing that, just to kind of highlight, is that as members of the Finance Committee, aside from the positions that act as liaisons to other committees, we can't serve on any other committee. And that does help us stay neutral, especially as we get into broader and broader discussions about budgets. Do you have any questions for any of the individual members? I know, as you can hear, we all came from sort of different paths.
Right.
We have different occupational, educational backgrounds, but really the only qualifications necessary to be a resident of the town of Halifax and to be a registered voter in the town of Halifax.
Right.
So,
Yeah, no, I don't really have any questions. I pretty much have kind of poked around different towns' websites to see what kind of what does this town do, what this town does, that sort of stuff. So I had a pretty good idea of what the necessary qualifications and what you would actually be doing on a month-to-month basis. So.
okay, great. We also have development opportunities at the state level to attend different trainings for finance committee members, the Association for Town Finance Committees, the Division of Local Services, all put on trainings that we've attended in different capacities, and we can always pass those materials on if you're interested in looking at them, because some of them are helpful for new finance committee members. Yeah. Do any of the Board of Selectmen or Sandy or Charlie or anyone have any other things that I've left out?
No, I think you did a tremendous job, actually. My question for you, do you have any time constraints during the winter months? Because that tends to be when they meet the most.
Yeah, my only constraint that I currently have is my job requires me to put into production, because I'm a software developer by nature. So typically once a month, and it's usually a Saturday night, I have to work an overnight to basically put in all the new functionality. Unfortunately, that was last night, so I'm coming off almost like a 24-hour shift, and next week I have to do the whole week. But after I get through this, because we're just upgrading everything to SQL Server 2016, but after I get through next week, things dramatically smooth out. School ends on December 7th, so things open up quite a bit. And again, so the only restriction would be once a month I would have a Saturday overnight functionality. So
Awesome.
that's about it.
So the Finance Committee gets a little busy in the winter time, so budget season starts around the beginning of January, and as Melinda said, you meet with department heads. And right now, today's kickoff meeting, you're welcome to stay if you want, but we're going to talk about how the financials look going into the next year. Again, things are pretty fluid. There's things that change, and that might cause more meetings in a specific week or longer meetings, but for the most part, your busy season is from January until we go to print in April.
Right.
And then you still meet in the summer, and that's when we do a lot of our planning. In years past, the other committee members, we worked on policy, so we would like to be able to get back to that, but we certainly have been in a place where we haven't had a full committee for well over a year, and that's been pretty challenging.
Yes.
We're all very proud about our finance committee and the way that we manage the budget and audit the budgets and really look for backup. This committee never just rubber stamps anything, and I think you mentioned that you've been to town meetings, so you
Yes.
know that we go through and we research everything so that it's a full disclosure, and I don't know that a lot of towns do this full disclosure as we do, but we're very proud of that because we're here to represent you, the taxpayer, and that's what we do.
It still amazes me though that, based on social media comments and stuff like that, the significant lack of understanding of what goes into developing the budget. You'll hear people complaining about an $80 line expenditure, and I'll sit there and say, you're missing the forest for the trees. Stop it. Stop focusing on one little detail, which makes up 0.0001% of the budget.
I know. I think that
calm down.
There are certainly
They can relate to that.
Yeah. And I think that there are people who are into the little things.
Yes.
And I think there are people who just can't afford their tax bill and they're just going to pick at any little
Right.
thing and they're going to make up excuses and they want us to look like we're just spending the money without really thinking about it. But you know, I like to say the people of the Facebook have spoken, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what
Yeah.
reality is. But yeah, so we're so appreciative of your time and wanting to volunteer, because it's really getting involved that you really get to know the way that the town works, and then when it's just a beautiful.
Right, I mean, that was the problem, it's like I can't argue because I don't know how everything works.
Yeah,
So I was
that's
kind of like,
perfect.
you know, I'm like saying to myself, well, there's no reason why I can't find out.
Yeah, and we love volunteers.
Yeah.
We love volunteers, we really do.
And just because we all look at the same materials and listen to the same commentary, we don't always agree on everything, which is why I put everything goes to a vote. So I think all of us feel really comfortable speaking out and disagreeing with each other, and we disagree with each other. If we split a vote on town meeting floor, we'll explain it. Everyone will get to explain why they agreed or dissented with it, and we really value that we're all still neighbors at the end of the day, and we're all still respectful with each other, but we don't all think the same way. And that's the benefit of having so many people and so many different people on a board together.
And it's nice to be challenged, it's nice to be questioned at times, because it makes us better,
Right.
you know, really. So,
If everyone thought the same, all we need was one member on the board.
This is like Hotel California, you can never leave.
yeah, so I just want to let you know.
Maybe check out.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna become really good friends. I know where you live. No.
Well, Lynn knows where I live because he drives by my Halloween
Oh, good, you
display.
can pick him up.
Yeah.
And it's,
I'm still waiting for my ride from the train, by the way.
oh, yeah.
It's to occur.
You have to call.
As long as the town doesn't get mad at me about my Halloween displays.
You can take him in that, but whatever.
I get mad at you because my wife wants me to do that to her.
All right, now I gotta know, where is it?
So it's South Street.
You can see it from just
Yeah.
about
See it
any
from the
spot in
moon.
town.
From the
Yeah.
moon?
It's like, you know how like Steve Haywood does Christmas?
Yeah,
I do
with
the
the
same for
music.
Halloween.
You do?
Oh my,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm afraid of
Good to
Halloween.
know.
So I've already bought like 5 more things for last year. You see my house, I can't really fit anymore. The whole front yard's covered.
So if there's no other questions, what the procedure is for the finance committee the chair will call for a vote on whether or not to recommend the appointment of the interested person to the finance committee. So are you still interested in being appointed to the finance
Yes, I mean, if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them. I mean, if you want to know what my background, a little bit more detail, I'm happy to go into that.
You had me at actuary.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I thought you answered all the questions when you introduced yourself, but if anyone else has any questions?
My only question would be, no new math?
No.
It would okay
No.
with me.
Yeah, I'm not.
So I think it's a joint vote of both boards, right? And I think we need to know what the, we're gonna vote tonight as well. So I think we need
Oh,
to know
okay.
when the term expires, which I think is 2090.
Well,
I think we were going to go for
if you want to drag me in.
Hi, Gordon.
Thank you. Charlie, do we have the term for the next?
Let me see what.
I think it's
Thank you.
2020.
I think it's 2020.
I think it's July, June 30.
Well,
No, it's a different, June 15.
I mean, you could do it either way, have one vote from each of the committees, or you could have the entire committees, and we'll get the term correct in a minute.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do.
I didn't know if we had to vote first and then.
Well, sometimes, like if it's an opening, like if it's a new appointment, then I think you guys vote and then we vote separately. But I
Okay.
think this is a filling of one, so that I think we do it the joint vote. And I
Okay.
think, yeah, that's how I think. But-
The new member is the moderator, one member of the finance committee, one member of the selectmen. When it's a filling, it's the two boards.
Yes.
Well, we've got vacancies for 21 and 19 and 20, so I'm forced.
Whatever you.
21.
21.
20.
We already voted 20.
Can we go?
All right, I'll make a motion.
Can we get a 23?
Yeah.
I have a son in Silver Lake High
Second.
School. He would kill me if I moved. Because, you know, he's got his friends, he's in drama and in band and everything else like that.
Oh, really? What's the
Yeah.
last name? again?
McGovern.
Is he in your town?
Yes, he
Oh.
actually is.
I'm gonna go this week.
Yeah, my granddaughter is Sierra, Isaac said she's in it too.
Nice. Yeah, we have to go all 3 days, of course, because, you know, you get the kid in it. But,
Yeah.
yeah, my wife grew up in Halifax, so we bought my mother-in-law's house. She still lives with us. So we've been here since 2000. I've been here since 2008, so my,
Not tell me yet, what you getting there?
All right, so I'll make a motion for Mr. McGovern to be appointed to the Finance Committee with a term to expire on June 15, 2021.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion or any questions?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
And again, you're more than welcome to stay.
No, I'm gonna stay.
Oh, yeah.
It won't be the
So I'll just tell you what the procedure is. So you'll get a note from our secretary, Pam McSherry,
Okay,
and you'll come in and get a card, but you'll need to get sworn in by the clerk.
okay.
And then you're official, and then you can sit and actually vote, so.
Sworn in by the clerk, sworn in by the
Sworn in.
people.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I'm actually
Sworn
interested in the
out.
website too, because, again, my day job is software development.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so we have, this is perfect. Okay, yeah. All right, thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Great, we're looking forward to working with you. The next item on the agenda is liaison appointments. We did revise our liaison appointments. They're in everyone's folders. The change that we'll be making is that when we originally did them, we had anticipated having another member on the board, but that individual is no longer interested. So what we can do is, and Fred, just to be completely clear, the liaison appointments, the way we've divided them up is sort of on workload and people's schedules.
Yes.
So we reserved the offices in Town Hall for the newest member of the board because they're centrally located, the expense lines are smaller, they don't have some of the extenuating circumstances that other departments are going to have. So the veteran members of the board have sort of divided up all the ones with sort of heavier lifts to them and left the Town Hall offices. So in the interest of full transparency, if we move forward tonight on reallocating those to you, I'm happy to work with you and,
Sure.
and we can do those together and what around your schedule. And I don't want you to feel like we're throwing something on your plate without any kind of guidance or help.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Now, again, I've attended the Silver Lake School Committee meetings quite a few times, so there's I can still go to those without being like.
Absolutely. And actually that'd be great because there might be some that because of my teaching schedule I can't make. So we've been talking about covering each other's shifts, such as it were. So that would be amazing. So I just didn't want you to listen to this conversation and think that we were talking as if you weren't here. Thank you, Kathy, for redoing the list with all the new liaison appointments. Does anyone have any other edits to make on their own liaison appointments? They looked correct to me.
Yep.
Okay. So then the only change to make would be that I would entertain a motion to reallocate the town hall departments, which would be accountant, appeals board, assessors, board of health, building inspector, collector, conservation commission, planning board, sealer of weights and measures, selectman, town clerk, and treasurer, to our newest member to be sworn in, Fred McGovern.
I'll second the motion.
William, okay, so Diane moves. Does anyone
I'll
second?
move.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion or questions? And as I said, Fred, I'm happy to work with you and yeah. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Do we need to vote the change on the changes Lenny and I discussed?
Did you shift anything around?
Just to make it official.
So what did you flip?
I have no idea.
So I have Len with building, civil defense, fire, police, and veteran services.
We didn't vote on every single line item, did we?
No, we voted as clusters.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about that
Okay.
Yeah. And then Bill's gonna keep capital planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have capital planning, cemetery, communications committee, dog officer, highway, historical commission, historical district commission, parks, recycling, and water.
My only suggestion about the dog officer is that's under the jurisdiction of the police department, so I would just move that with police. That's the only change that I would suggest that you make.
Okay.
Okay, so then I'll entertain a motion to redistribute the dog officer liaison position to Len Ticino for his liaison appointments. Everyone else's seems to be okay.
So moved.
You have a motion, do you have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Next on the agenda is the funding for the redesigned town website.
Yeah. We established the current version of the website back in 11 with virtual town hall, which had done a lot of work with a lot of small municipalities in Massachusetts and across New England. They were purchased by Civic Plus a year or two ago, and we've continued to use the virtual town hall platform in terms of how the website actually gets built. What Civic Plus has said to us is that the end of life for the current platform is going to be the end of April of 19. So we need to switch over to something else. If we stay with Virtual Town Hall Civic Plus, they gave us two options. One is to use one of their templates. Basically, everything's set up. Obviously, the photographs change, things like that, but the basic setup is done. And that would be $3,000 for a one-time charge. Right now, we're paying about $3,000 per year for maintenance of the website. This would be a $3,000 charge above and beyond that. We don't have money in the budget currently to do that right now. Or we can work with them in a redesign, which would be about $4,500. There are other outfits out there that do municipal web design and hosting as such. What I needed to get from the selectmen and from the finance committee was a feeling as to whether there was interest in pursuing getting proposals from these other vendors, in that I would expect that the cost for moving to one of them would be higher simply because they're not familiar with the town and such. We'd have to do more work with them in putting this all together. So that it would probably be somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. I don't know what the annual maintenance fee is from them. We find that out also. But in either case, I probably will need to come back either to the finance committee for a reserve fund transfer, since this is not expected when we're at town meeting in May, or else go to town meeting in late February. My expectation was we'll have a town meeting on February 25th to deal with the fire suppression system. The primary reason for it, in that money that we allocated back in May of 17, $977,000 is not going to be adequate. We've known that for a while. We didn't get any bids this past spring. We're going to rebid that project next month now, still in January, with bids coming in early February. But setting that aside, in essence, there are two possible ways for me getting additional funding. One is to come back to you at some point in the future, near future, to ask for a reserve fund transfer for the necessary funds, or to go to town meeting. In any case, I'm going to need at least $3,000, if not $4,500. That's the default. The other possibility would be to get the proposals from the other firms, rank them, pick the one that's the best proposal without worrying about cost immediately, and get the price proposal for them. They came in with what I thought was an absurd number, for instance, above $10,000. Then I would say, sorry, as much as you're good folks and probably do a bang-up job of putting the website together, you're out of our league in terms of budget. But anything under that, I probably would be going back to you all one way or the other through funding, through town meeting, to ask for additional funding. We'd still have to budget the annual line item for maintenance, but we have a redesigned website by the end of April, and whatever firm we use. So if someone says, well, what's wrong with it? It's like, there's nothing wrong with it in the sense of it's adequate for what we have. It could be better if we spend more time on it. But what I've seen is during the last few years, and looking at the templates and the redesigns and from other municipal websites from the other vendors, is that the website itself, behind the home page, is still most everything you would expect it to be. Obviously, there are functions that we may have or may not have, like e-permitting. We're allowing for more payment online right now for various things, but we don't a lot of functions that other municipalities might have, especially large ones we don't have yet. But what I'm thinking more in terms is the home page and how things look. And you'll see that it's far more graphically based, less text-based than it used to be. You'll have far fewer links on that initial page. You'll have more menu-driven in the sense of if someone waves their cursor, their mouse, whatever, their finger, to a specific place on the website, they'll see a drop-down menu. We have some of that already, but you see an increase in that sort of setup. So there will be a change possibly in the look and feel no matter who we use. But the object of the website will still remain the same. We may have additional functionality at some point, but that's not the main goal. So that's why I'm coming here tonight, is just to get a feeling, because I don't need myself or Caesar put any more work into looking at other firms unless there's an interest, in fact, in having us do that, even if the price is going to be higher than what Virgin Town Hall Civic Plus would be charging us.
Wait, do you have a sense? Oh, sorry. Gordon?
So just one point of information for everyone. Last time we did the redesign, let us spread out the cost of the redesign.
Yeah.
So we were at $4,500 for 3 or 4 years, and then it dropped down to 3. So the
Right.
cost that we were at was $40.
Right, but my concern is this, I'm sort of in a weird place in the middle of the budget here, in that if I sign a contract with this firm, and I haven't gotten the initial appropriation from town meeting, it's a weird situation. If I go in May and ask for, let's say, $4,500, let's say it's $1,500 a year, and town meeting says, sorry, no, well, I've signed a contract without the necessary appropriation. Technically, Sandy wouldn't let me pay any bills. Not that I have any bills to pay yet, but I'd be in this situation that I'd have a contract signed, agreed to by everybody, yet not have the funding for it.
How did we do it last time, Gordon? I don't remember. Did we fund it and just do,
We spread it out, yeah, Gordon's correct.
yeah.
But the
But how
thing
did we
is,
do the logistics of that?
So well, it was the first time, so
Right.
we put it into the town meeting warrant first.
And the data processing, did we do it?
no, it's a separate, we had a
did
website, we need your website.
Okay, I couldn't remember how we did it.
Is
I
there
remember
any,
we had the
Can we ask the same
cable, like we had the
question?
website committee that was working on it.
Oh, mine's gonna be, can you push it up?
So what you're saying is that if you sign the contract now, you're hanging us out to dry because we haven't got it okay from town meeting.
I won't sign any contract unless I have the necessary appropriation.
there's really,
So,
No, no.
is this a discussion that we need to carry on right now, because
I need some guidance in the
Yeah.
sense of if the consensus here is, Charlie, we don't want to spend more than, let's say, $4,500 for a redesign, I can then say, fine, we're going with virtual town hall civic plus, case is closed, and I just work with them.
I feel like we have a pretty good website that I don't know that we really need a complete redesign. That-
yeah, is there anything wrong with the template that they have for 3,000?
Yeah, that's what I was.
But
No, it looks a little like everything else, which isn't necessarily bad.
Does it allow you to do editing?
Yes.
Your own editing?
I think the one
Like, in other
question.
words, can you create your own templates?
No, that's the whole point is,
Yeah.
we have it, you either go for the template or you go for the redesign.
The one thing I would ask, and I don't know if this would come up in looking at different templates, but improve functionality for mobile devices, because that's where so many people are accessing things now, and
Right.
our website is a little bit difficult to use if you're on a tablet or a phone.
Yes. It
So,
doesn't react to that. And in fact, what every single firm that I've been looking at, when they've done demonstrations, they'll show, okay, here's what it looks like if you're running on a
Yeah.
laptop, or just the folks who still use desktops. And here's what, for instance, on a tablet or on a phone. And you'll see that it does change how
Yeah.
it's configured.
yeah.
So, yeah, they react to what type of device you're using.
Okay.
Well, I'd be surprised, the new company that took over virtual town hall, they don't have a mobile access or mobile platform to
No,
make
it's
it
all,
easier?
no, if I use Civic Plus, what happens is that the website itself, if someone goes to your website, it looks and says, is this person using a phone?
Yeah.
Is this person using a tablet? Is this person using a regular computer? And it will reconfigure how that home page and other pages will look based on that.
I mean, so if the original template that we have now is that old, is the new template it probably has more functionality than what we have now?
Well, in terms of connections to what devices you're using. It's not, the home pages aren't going to change that much in the sense of, we're not going to suddenly have e-permitting, for instance.
Right. Whatever we have now is going to be there,
Yeah.
maybe even slightly better, just
Yeah.
given the age. I wouldn't have any desire to do a redesign, especially since it was something that we didn't plan for in the first place, and we're coming up on it early next year.
We have a lot on the capital plan this year. I know we have a lot of free cash, but there are a lot of items that we bumped from the highway department, and ambulance, we have a lot on the plate, so I think that this isn't the year to be doing it.
How does it hurt us if you do go out to look at the other companies, see what they're offering, so we have it on record?
Yeah, that was my next question, because maybe somebody surprises us, as unlikely as that might be. Is there any risk in doing that?
There's no risk. I mean, I can get prices from the other folks also, but my guess is that the Civic Plus is going to be the lowest price because I guess, there's no, the learning curve for them is less in dealing with us. It's not that all these other places haven't dealt with municipalities, that's what they do. But on the other hand, BTH Civic Plus already has, in essence, all the information, on our website. It makes it very much easier for them to port over everything to the new design.
What's your thoughts on that, Frederick?
I would go out, I would check around. I think you can get more functionality at similar costs. I think you're locking yourself in, you basically are comfortable. So you're like, oh, they know us. So if we go that route, fine, that's what you're gonna have. You're not gonna have any new functionality. You might get an improvement so that, the website runs a little bit better. It's a little bit more robust on, the devices. But if you could, the way I look at it is, if you can, let's say they come back and say, okay, it's gonna cost us X dollars more than what we're currently having. But you get functionality that might actually give us revenue of Y, then we can come back and say, is there a cost benefit of actually going with a slightly higher cost redesign than staying with the status quo, which isn't going to get you any additional functionality, no additional revenue or anything else like that. I don't think it hurts to ask around.
I don't see a downside to going out.
No.
I just don't see it.
Right. And the other thing too is like, if you sign a contract, how long does the contract last?
Generally, it's going to be for 3 years.
3 years, so.
If the idea is you're paying over installments for 3 years, or you can do it in one shot.
Yeah, and there's other things I'm concerned about, like, the ability to, how quickly can you edit and get things updated. That's not been a problem for us in the sense of if you've got someone who will do that, that's not a problem. It's making it a priority for any particular department or any particular person to spend the necessary time. As I've said to the vendors, it's never been an issue of that we've found it difficult to make edits, to make new pages and changes. It's finding the time to do so. Yeah, because I've noticed a lot of dead links on our website.
Right.
Like even the finance committee, you go to the annual budget, doesn't pull anything out. No.
So it seems like we're heading toward a consensus of at least going out to other vendors just to get a sense of pricing and potential benefits of switching before we have any kind of discussion about whether or not we even want to switch.
Right, but being mindful that it has to go into the priority of the capital plan when we get the numbers.
Well, it's going to be earlier than the capital plan.
No, I understand, but
So, Charlie, is there any way to have virtual town hall, I think it is, maintain the site until June? Or till our town hall
It
vote?
may be possible, but the problem is that, again, they maintain the site to June. We're not financially set up to simply flip the switch on July 1st because that's when the new budget year starts. So it's now several more months past July 1st. Because even for them to port it over will probably take a couple of months.
yeah.
That's why I'm saying either I need to do a reserve fund transfer, whoever I use, or I need to come to town meeting in February
Right.
for the additional money.
Right.
But we still have time either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
So,
February will be tight for anybody else.
okay.
Well, because we're dealing with other bids too.
Right.
Yeah.
But okay, I will keep knocking on doors for the time being. There aren't a lot of firms out there, but there are at least 3 or 4 that I'm working with right now.
Do we have to hold a vote to send you?
I
Okay.
just need some feedback at this point.
Awesome. Thank you. So since most of us are here for the discussion of the budget, I'll ask if anyone mind just moving down to the discussion of the budget or with the selectmen, then we can handle all the housekeeping stuff for the finance committee after. That which people are of course welcome and encouraged to stay for, but most of you are here for the discussion of the budget for fiscal year 20. So I don't know if Charlie...
Gordon has the big pile right now, a little trial, that's in there.
Okay. Thank
Morning,
you.
are you gonna pass out all the people?
He's back to school.
I know, very nice.
Suggestions.
Sorry,
This is going to be the like.
It'll be gone in a few days.
So I met with the assessor and the collector, Charlie,
Raise the kid out.
last week. So that's probably what this is.
This is all the same, so there's an extra stuff.
Thank you.
Pretty good, you know?
Listen, with your permission, I'll just walk this through.
Please, thank you.
I do a one sheet at the beginning of this discussion every year to try and get all the information, obviously on one page. It's not a huge amount of detail, it's enough to get an approximate idea of where we stand. I'll walk through each line item. I know our audience at home can't see this, but for folks who aren't as familiar with this one sheet who are here in the room right now. So our primary revenue source obviously is property taxes. So I'm starting off with our property tax levy limit. It's not the amount that we levied last year. It's the actual amount that we could levy given their state rules and regulations and such. So there's a significant difference between what we levied and what we could levy. And that's what the 16,171 is. As Proposition 2.5, we get to increase that levy by 2.5%, so that's thrown in. We also get to throw in net growth, new growth in this case. And what that is that we always have new buildings in town, we have additions to the buildings that we have. All those can raise new property tax money above and beyond the levy limit and the 2.5. In the past 5 years, what I did was I took the 5-year average, took 80% of that, and said that's what a conservative idea of what new growth is. Now, we start off usually a lot lower than that every time, like 80,000, 90,000.
Right, what kind of item?
But
I think a little high at that number,
Okay.
based on what I've been looking at in the
Okay.
assessor's office.
well, I mean, I don't think it's going to be material one way or the other, if we went to 100 or whatever, but I'm telling you right now, I've looked at the last 5 years, these aren't wonderful years. I mean, some of us were back here in 99 and 98, we were getting 40 new houses along with all the additions, and we were seeing new growth, $200,000-300,000 a year. No one's expecting anything like that. We're in the single digits for new building permits every year right now. And that's based on these 5 years where we've had single digits in the building permits. But like I said, if someone said, well, it should be 100,000, okay, fine. It's not going to be material right now versus a $24 million budget. But I put that's how I derived the $123,000. We added the debt exclusions because those go above and beyond the levy limit. That's why the debt exclusions, not unlike the fire suppression system where we get that done, or if we ever did the council on aging, those were going to be within the levy limit. We weren't going to exclude those. But these ones, sort of like the elementary school project that we now have for the renovations and the continuing bond payments for the capping the landfill, those all go in. I didn't put any unused levy because to me that's a subject, one of the reasons for a subject of discussion tonight. So I'm saying we're using the whole thing right now. And so you come up with our levy cap for fiscal 20 at 17.7 million. The local receipts are carryover from our fiscal 19 recap. It's what we put in for local receipts for fiscal 19. I simply carried that over. Both Sandy and myself monitor our two big numbers, which are the motor vehicle receipts and our ambulance receipts. Ambulance receipts are a little soft. We're not really, I mean, it's not as if they went down to zero, but we're certainly not yet seeing the increase, which we didn't budget for, in the sense that we didn't assume this, but when we did the changeover from doing the billing in-house, to having an outside firm do the work, our expectation was we'd start seeing receipts go up. We're now 4 months into the 5th month for our budget cycle.
No, we just started it.
You just started it? When?
Yeah.
Well, they started sending the bills out in September, and it usually takes 3 months before they start seeing a
Okay,
return on
well,
their bills.
then maybe we'll see
We
that.
met with them a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's still early to
Okay.
make
Yeah.
that
But
jump.
right, even without that, those receipts are still soft versus last year. There could be any number of factors, number of runs, delays in, not delays in billing so much, but delays in payment and such. But again, we're talking the difference between 225 and 200,000. Again, it's a small drop. It's against a $24 million budget, it's 0.1%, but there'd be no reason if anybody said, well, we think ambulance receipts should be up here. There's nothing yet that we're seeing for the actuals coming in that says we should bump those receipts up. Same thing with motor vehicle. Motor vehicle is fine. It's above what we're using as an estimate, and that's good news, and we're leaving that alone. So the receipts should be fine at the number we're using.
Jerry, I was gonna pause you for a second, because I know you made the note that the local receipts does not include the meals tax, because we made a commitment that meals tax would go toward capital items.
Right.
And I know that we have our free cash number. Do you have, Sandy, on a separate sheet for capital planning, what we estimate in addition to free cash for capital planning, for the meals tax? Memory around-
It's about $90,000.
Okay. All right, thank you.
State aid, just carry over from the cherry sheet from fiscal 19.
So you're
I've
level
been-
funding it?
Pardon, no change, but
Okay.
I'll say that their receipts look good. Sales tax revenue is up 3-4% on a rolling average for the last 12 months. Since the last 12 months, up to the end of October, are 3 or 4% better than the 12 months previous, so we haven't seen any weakness there. The withholding for the income tax is even better, it's more like 5 or 6% up. Doesn't mean it lasts forever. If you were, what we're doing is looking at this and saying, okay, is it almost projecting 18 months ahead, 19 months ahead, in that we're looking at a budget that's going to end in June of 2020. But right now, what has happened in the past is that for the non-school local aid, the state will distribute or increase the amount that they're distributing to the cities and towns by the same percentage increase in revenues that they're receiving. So if they get a 3% increase in their receipts year to year, they'll increase it by 3% for the non-school aid. The Chapter 78 is a whole different thing that has so many Band-Aids and caveats, everything else, that you can't just put in a percentage, but there's no reason to think that they won't be able to increase school aid in some point. But no increase is factored in here. I've taken out, and so you have a total there of the 23.7. I've taken out things that either don't show up on the, when we go to town meeting, things like tax title or reserve for the abatements, or like on the cherry sheet, again, don't go to town meeting, but we're taken out in our calculations. So our assessments, for instance, the county or anyplace else, the tax title money that our treasurer collector needs for her work, reserve for abatements that we've put in for the Board of Assessors each year. The 96,000 there is the amount that was in the recap sheet for fiscal 19. That might go up and down based on a number of things, but it won't be materially larger or smaller, I would guess, from the 96,000. If we, back in the day, we used overlay reserve, a surplus for the capital planning, but we didn't use it for operating expenses, so that's a zero. And we don't use free cash for operating expenses. We have other sources of funding, water receipts, waste receipts, the cable pass-through money, small amount for bond premiums, the dog line items, animal control items, we fund via the dog account, and then we have the 2 bond payments for the Water Pollution Abatement Trust that we get money through that. Those are all placed into as items on our revenue So we come up with just over now $25 million of projected revenue for the town meeting for fiscal 20. So we do the takeaways. The operating budget Article 4, we take that out, away from that. We had a whole bunch of union articles or personnel contracts at town meeting that weren't part of Article 4. I have to subtract those also. We went to the meeting in August and we increased the ambulance billing and the dispatch line items. And those are in the operating budget, and my assumption is we're going to continue to have to fund those at those levels. So I'm taking money out for that. For health insurance, obviously the assumption always is that health insurance is going to go up. I go to the Mayflower Municipal Health Group meetings on a regular basis. I monitor what they're bringing in, versus what they're actually having to pay out. Right now, they're running at a healthy surplus. They're running at less than 90%, which is great versus a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, we ended up, I think, paying something on the order of 11, 12, 13, 14% more in premiums back in fiscal 18 versus 17. Our increases for fiscal 19 were more to 5 to 7%. I don't even see 5 to 7% right now because the funding ratio is so much on the plus side. That obviously can change. We won't get a rate schedule from them until February or March, but right now that's what I'm plugging in right now. The retirement increase is known. We already have the assessment letter from the Plymouth County Retirement for fiscal 2020, so that's a known number. The special education is a number I put in there because we know, again, it's going to go up. It's not based on anything from the school system, from Joy or Christine, Joy or Christine over at Silver Lake, because they don't know right now. They're still formulating their own budget. But when I looked at the last few years, basically we're seeing about $100,000 more per year in the special ed budget. So I've said, fine, I'm going to, for right now, assume $100,000. The thing about the special ed is we could have a student who's a residential student, meaning someone who isn't educated here in the elementary school, and for that matter, doesn't just go back and forth on a special ed bus. They're actually a tuition student, in essence, at a private facility where they're cared for 24/7. When you have one of those, you're talking easy 6 figures, and that blows your special education budget. But until we get information from Joy and Christine as to whether we're going to have, they see the possibility of getting additional students like that or other expensive students like that. I'm not plugging that in right now. That obviously, that number could easily go up and down very, very quickly and in a large denomination. The vocational education change is a smaller, going back and forth in the sense of I've asked them, do they have any idea yet as to how many kids might be coming in from 8th grade? Obviously, they don't know yet.
They don't know until the cutoff date is April 1st, but the last couple of years, because I know we had some relief in this line item for many years, because not a lot of area vocational students were taking applications other than Norfolk Aggie. But in the last several years, we've had increases. So I think we budgeted at least in years past one additional student, which is about, with transportation, about 35,000, 40,000. So I think we should at least plug in 40,000 in that line item.
Silver Lake, we're seeing a smaller percentage of students from for our fiscal 2020 calculations. If you remember, what Silver Lake does is they'll take their budget, they'll take away all the state aid they get and all the other revenues they get. Tuition students, as an example. Any other money that they get in, the solar field that they have, as an example, is money they have in. When they take all that out, that's when they divide it up, the rest of the budget based on the number of students. So it's not a pure, if 33% of the students for Silver Lake come from Halifax, it's a straight 33%. It's 33% of the remainder after they take out all the other revenues. Our percentage has been going down a little bit, a few tenths of a percent every year for the last couple of years. It will continue to go down for another 2 or 3 years. Somewhere like 2022, it will start going back up based on the demographics we have for the grades for the kids that are in, let's say, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. As they start moving into the middle school and the high school, we're going to start seeing a larger percentage. Again, it's not going to be an enormous jump, but instead of a percentage going from 33% to 32.6, or then to 32.1, it will start going back up to 32.5, to 33, to 33.3, or something like that. It's a very gradual process. Plimpton, because they're so much smaller, one student for them is a bigger shock than it is for us. But, so my assumption is, starting off, if nothing else changed in Silver Lake, the budget didn't change one iota, we'd be $20,000 to the better, and that's where I'm starting off with them. Step increases for the elementary school, I'll wait to hear from Joy and Christine. They already have all their contracts in place. It's really a matter of who's there. Do they move up a step? Do we have retirements? Do we have new teachers coming in to replace retired teachers? All that they don't have yet. However, they do have a 2% increase in their union, in the sense of everybody across the board, it's a 2% increase. So I took the school payroll approximately and said throw in $80,000 from the school payroll. Same thing for the town. You know, at some point, Sandy will work with the departments. We'll get, if nothing else changes, what the step increases are, people coming in, people leaving. Because, you know, we might budget the year we're in now with a step 6 person, and at some point during the year, that person leaves, and somebody else comes in at step 1. And we'll have to, you know, we'll reformat the budget based on that. But on the other hand, I'm plugging this number in. We've done no union negotiations. It's not as if Wage and Personnel has had a public hearing or made a recommendation, but for right now, I'm assuming a 2% across the board for everybody. Doesn't mean that's going to happen, but I wanted to put a number in there so we can get a better idea of where we would sit if we did a 2% across the board increase. Silver Lake, the school budget there, we have no idea. Christine, however, has all the numbers already done. She's going to give us now and tell me exactly what our assessment will be for the coming year. No, that's not happening even a week after Thanksgiving. So until we get a better idea of the Silver Lake budget, we won't have in general what our assessment increase is going to be. Reserve fund is funded by the operating budget, even though it's not part of Article 4. And my assumption for the moment is we're funding at the same level we funded it for fiscal 19, $75,000 from the general fund and $50,000 from the water department. And OPEB is now, as opposed to previous years, is now a line item in Article 4. It's no longer a separate article. So it's included up in that Article 4 operating budget in terms of calculations. So we get down to...
Charlie, what is OPEB?
The other post-employment benefits, meaning that we have people who are taking the town's health insurance, but they're retirees. So the town pays 50% of that. There, just as with the retirement, right now, the Plymouth County retirement system isn't fully funded. The idea being that if everybody closed down tomorrow, there'd be enough money in the retirement system's bank account to pay all the retirement payments that they would be obligated to do so. OPEB works the same way in that we're heading towards a time at some point, we're trying to, that we would have enough money socked away that if we closed our doors, all our share of the payments for our retirees for the medical insurance would be covered. We're doing 50-50, not as if we're paying 100%, but our share, our 50% share would be in that fund. We have been making very small relative to the size of our liability payments each year, at $35,000 a year. And now, instead of doing an arc, we now have a line item. And that money goes into a trust fund, which is monitored by a treasurer collector and a group of trustees. Again, we're nowhere near fully funded. I think we have, what, 150, something like that?
Close to
over 200,000. But our liability is more like $11 million, $12 million. So you can see and no one's proposing that tomorrow or the next year we start fully funding it. But what we're showing in making these payments on an annual basis is to places like Moody's that we are taking steps, at least, to get to that point. Very small steps, but steps nevertheless. So you look at the bottom line, it looks like a lovely number. It's this big, I say, I've never seen this number whenever I've done this sheet before.
Some pretty sizable pieces missing there still.
Pardon?
Some pretty sizable pieces missing there
Well,
still.
there are pieces missing there still, and there are pieces that we need to have some discussion about tonight also. There's money left, we've left money on the table because we know we're going to at some point have to, under the levy limit, fund the fire suppression system.
Yes.
So if we spend that money, if we say, let's spend it on an operational budget this coming year, and then next year we'll have to cut that operational budget to make the principal and interest payment on fire suppression system, that's not a good work plan. So we deliberately left money on the table as part of the fiscal 19 budget, and now for the fiscal 20 budget to do the same thing, so that when those principal and interest payments come due, we'll have the money available to pay them without having to cut someplace else. We're going to need to talk about at some point the council on aging. Town meeting said no to the last proposal. This was a proposal that was going to be under the levy limit. If there's an intent, not this coming May, because there are no new architectural plans or anything, I don't see us doing anything this coming May for a new construction budget for anything to do with the council on aging of any type. But if at some point down the line, we are thinking we're going to, and we're going to put that under the levy limit, that's another thing we need to leave enough money on the table. Now, you have to figure out, well, how much is that going to be? I don't know, because we don't know how big or how small, whether you're doing renovations, a new building, whatever it is. If we're doing it under the levy limit rather than a debt exclusion, we want to continue leaving money on the table. We've had, for the last 3 years, a policy of leaving at least $300,000. It's a nominal sum, but at least it promotes the idea that we're not going up to the levy limit to say to the taxpayers in Halifax, we understand a lot of you are in fixed budgets or fixed incomes or whatever. We're not taxing to the maximum that we could. We're leaving $300,000 on the table. Now, I don't expect that that's going to change in the sense that we're certainly not going to do that, but we should have a discussion, whether it's tonight or later on, to say, should we leave it at 300,000? Should we increase it? Should we decrease it? And have that discussion, because obviously dollars we leave on the table for that part, for deliberately not taxing to the levy limit, we're saying to the taxpayers, here's your money, keep it in your pocket. At the same time, we're saying we're not going to do X, Y, or Z in terms of town programs and services. There are going to be, I think, a number of items coming to you this coming year where people are going to be asking for increases. And these aren't just simply wage and salary increases, or it's because the price of electricity has gone up or down, or postage. My primary interest this year is on the highway department. And that's both operational and for capital. Operational, when I came in here in '96, the highway department had the same number of people in it that it has today. In those 20 years, 20 plus years, we have increased the number of roads that they're asked to maintain. In addition, we're going to have to do more work on stormwater management. That requires some outside help, but also requires having personnel here. It doesn't mean you have 5 additional people, but even one person would make a significant difference. During those 20 years, we've had significant increases in the number of people working at the fire department, obviously, but also in the police department. That hasn't happened with the highway department. I think this may be the year that we need to seriously think about making that change in the number of personnel down at the highway department. On the capital side, it's that we have an article every year for $150,000 for road work, for general road projects. That amount hasn't changed since I don't know when. I mean, it's changed since I've been here, but for a number of years, it's been $150,000.
Yeah, it's been 150 since I've been here 24 years.
So we need to make a change there, both again, in terms of the road miles that we're maintaining. So we need, there are more roads to pave and such, and simply the price of materials keeps going up. Or the price of labor for bringing outside firms keeps going up because of prevailing wage.
I know last year that Steve had talked to the finance committee about the additional staffing, and it was really a tough decision that it was made not to fund that, because we did have some increases in sped that were unexpected as always. But it's certainly something that we can consider looking at.
And as mentioned, stormwater, we may need to have in essence a separate line item to dedicate some money for stormwater operations. These are federal mandates, these aren't state mandates. This is not something that's going to be going away. It's both going to be an operational and a capital expense for a while, but there's no escaping it. And also, long-term, our primary concern for a long time has been Montponton Pond. One of the ways that nutrients and pollutants get into Montponton Pond is because we have an inadequate stormwater system. And that can work hand in hand with our operations that we've been doing to reduce algae growth in Montponton Pond. So there are good reasons just locally why we want to do that along with meeting the federal mandates. But it's a multi-year program we're talking about, and it's going to be a permanent addition to our budget in some form. I have no doubt there are other departments that have interests and programs that they will come to you to promote, and I'm not in disagreement with any of them. I'm just discussing right now tonight the things that I knew are going to be important enough that I wanted to say something tonight about them.
So Charlie, I think you did a great job on this form. The only thing, again, that I would suggest that we change is we would add in at least one vocational student. And the other thing I would do, and I think it was a great idea this year that you accounted for steps at the elementary school, but I also think that we need to account for that on the Silver Lake side. Whatever, maybe to get that with Christine.
Well, I guess it's more, I throw that into the general increase for Silver Lake.
Yeah.
I mean, we can divide that into pieces.
Yeah, no, I didn't see the general increase
Yeah.
for Silver Lake. I just saw a decrease, and that's just.
Well, that's a starting point for the assumption that our population is down.
Yes.
If you see there, you'll see Silver Lake at X% with a blank number.
Okay, yeah.
That's just simply, okay, how much of assessment does we end up getting as an increase? Because Christine will, I'm sure, will admit that the budget as an entirely will not go down.
Right.
No.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah, thank you, yeah. And just like, and I think it's a great idea that you accounted for perhaps a $100,000 increase on special education. That's helpful because we all know that we've sat in this room and we've looked at this and we start every budget season with this optimistic outlook, and then certain things come in May where those $20,000 swings does make a difference when we're trying to balance the budget. So I think this is a really great start. Again, really the meat of this discussion gets closer to in the February, March, because when we have more numbers coming in, and as Charlie mentioned too, we do know that Steve Waterman is looking for an additional staff member. That's Hayward. What did I say? Oh, he works there though. He does work there.
I don't know if Steve also wants to live with somebody, but Steve Hayward.
He would like somebody to work.
He might like an increase.
You might want that, but, so that's something that we can all, you can look at it, and, I don't know if there's any department that is definitely looking for
I don't know, and
additional
that's-
staffing on top of that, but.
Just don't historically the situation of the highway department. I think I can take Tom and Holly's good advice on the new growth number. We can drop it. I have no
Yeah.
problem at this point doing that.
I would, and then we can just be hopeful that the cherry sheet will show an increase, but for now, since you have an assessor looking at it and feeling a little uncomfortable, then I think you should definitely adjust it. Again, it looks good, but we have to think about, we have this debt payment for this water suppression system and fire suppression system that, as you know, every time we go out for bid, it surprises us even further. So I don't know what we want to account for that as a debt payment. Sandy, do you have, let's say that was like $1.5 million.
Well, if you want to say 5, that's 115 principal a year, and at 4% interest, that's 60, so 135.
I defer to my human calculator.
Yeah. It's nice to have them to your right, of course. So I would take that 40 off right away, right? Yeah, I would take the 300 right away off. And then what else do we have in there?
Well, how much do you want to leave for the council rate?
Well, that's
the $2 million question, probably.
I know, it's probably more as we
Well, is it worth it tonight to try to have sort of the philosophical discussion about this idea of a buffer? Because then that would be similar to the fire suppression estimate and other ones. We could sort of mentally take that off the table.
Yeah.
And then if we had to revisit that discussion later, obviously as other factors shift around, we could, but I wonder if that would be a good starting place tonight, just to see how we're all feeling about that idea.
Yeah. I mean, I vote for that.
Does anyone have any either ideas about the concept of leaving a buffer so that we're not actually taxing to the full levy limit that we could, or a figure that you are comfortable or uncomfortable with?
Where'd the 300,000 come from to begin with?
I know, like, yeah.
So it came from the fact that when we were looking at the budget the previous year, we saw how much special ed had jumped in one fiscal year, and then we had been talking about some of the other issues with a number of departments, and that was the number that we had come up with was 300,000.
That's what you felt comfortable with?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you did 300,000 for the unused levy, you put the 140 for the fire suppression.
Down to 6 or so, maybe a little under, given some of
And
the
if you
changes.
talk about Pope's Tavern, you better at least put in there 200,000.
I was gonna say 200,000.
For what?
Realistic
For
numbers.
Pope's Tavern, for the payment.
Oh,
For the payment.
But we haven't even had that discussion about
But I
when,
Well, that isn't gonna happen in 20, but you wanna
Yeah.
save it in the budget.
I think you need to realistically budget for that, because from all the votes that we've seen over the past number of 10 years, it's not gonna fly as a debt exclusion.
right.
So if it's a project that you feel like, I mean, the finance committee supported it the last go around.
no.
I would,
I don't see it happening in 20 in any event, but we need to allow for it, because it is gonna happen
and it's
somewhere.
only gonna be more money.
It's only gonna be more money, exactly.
Then I think then that begs the question too, of we're making all these estimates based on increasing state revenues, and at some point we're gonna hit the downside of the cycle, and it'll be 18 months after the private sector gets it, right? You know, they'll get the flu and we'll get the sniffles a little bit later, and then we'll have to make even further adjustments, so.
That, just a correction on that, then the town's getting pneumonia.
Well, no, yeah, and after, right? Because that's when we start to see the motor vehicle receipts don't come in,
Right.
and then the property taxes don't come in, and yeah.
It took until really '09, first, if you go back to the newspaper articles then, that's when you saw our surrounding communities start laying off police and fire people, for instance.
Yeah.
'09 and
And
10.
we didn't.
We did not, no. Because we're conservative, because we try to plan and we have buffers.
Motor vehicles has been jumping because there was pent-up demand.
Yeah.
But, you know, these loans are all 7-year loans, so before these things start turning
Right.
around again, you get that new money again.
Yeah.
That's not gonna keep going up at a great rate.
Yeah. So just something to be mindful too of as we're thinking about buffers and other potential projects that are going to be going in on the levy limit, is that we also have to, I think a longer horizon about when markets go down and we're in sort of a different place in terms of what the state's giving us and what we're getting in from receipts.
Right.
I personally am in favor of a buffer, and I'm willing to discuss sort of the number, but I like the idea of letting us be comfortable and having that sort of emergency savings account that we don't touch, and we make sure that we don't touch unless we absolutely have to. But I don't know how everyone else feels about.
I think it's probably too early to talk a number at this point, but in the same boat.
Yeah.
But I think in
When was
order,
the-
and I think that we do need to sort of come to an idea of a number, because going forward, when we send the message letter on December 1st, we need to be able to be clear about what the budgets are that we expect the department heads to submit. So whether that's a level service budget, you know, with what we've done in the last couple of years, which is notes on anything that they feel is necessary, you know, for an increase, whether it's an expense that has gone up or whether there's an initiative or a need, for instance, in the highway department for justification for an increase in the budget. I think that, yeah, we don't need to totally come up with, you know, $310,000, you know, $90, but we need to have a general idea so that, like we just did, we took, you know, 300 for that, 140 for that. If you're gonna take 200 for the senior center, then, you know, we don't really have a lot left in the
So,
bottom line.
so just on that thought though, if you wanted to keep, if you're not gonna touch it this year, if you're gonna take the 200 for capital items this year, if the highway department needs it, then you just think about it as a one-time
Yeah.
capital spend, that you know that that $200,000 is gonna get that payment, and don't count on that money. from the
Right, so you're saying,
So make it a capital
Yeah,
purchase,
that's a
not
good
an operations budget.
That's a good idea.
And you still have the option of, if in fact, when we do get the hard figures come in, of changing that one way or another.
Right, because we have a budget of $100,000 increase on sped, but, you know, again, that's a huge number that could.
Well, that was
It's
my
not
next
anybody's
question.
fault, it's just the
I
way
think it was
is.
pretty late in the year that 3 was decided on, wasn't it? I think they were-
No, we've done 3 before last
Was it
year.
started with it?
We had historically been doing it.
Years,
Yeah, I would say, Gordon, would you say at least 3 or 4 years we've done buffers?
It's been at least the last 2 cycles
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
said
Yeah.
300,000.
It's been
Before
consistently
that,
300,000
Yeah.
and along.
Yeah.
and before that, we had always tried to keep a buffer, but 300 was the number that we
Yeah.
agreed to for the previous.
Yeah.
They shot for it.
Yeah. So why don't we just plan on that, and then at least we'd have something left over if there's a surprise in the sped department or, you know, anywhere else that we think. And I think that's an excellent idea, Gordon, about if we're not gonna spend the 200 for the senior center debt payment, that we use it somehow where we know we do have a large capital request this year. I know we've been pretty fortunate with the amount of free cash that we have to work with, but given the number of projects that we put off from last year, not the Kubota, but other things.
Just wanted to say it.
Yeah, I just want to say, I didn't say Kubota. That, you know, it'll help.
Mhm.
It'll definitely help, so. And it's pouring out this year.
So just on the Silver Lake side, just from where I sat last year, the budget went up by about $600,000. So if we're a third of that, it's $200,000. So that's your ballpark from previous year's experience.
Right, and that's steps
And that's
and
just,
health
that's just the starting
insurance
point.
and expense. Like, those are just real solid, those weren't, yeah, those are just contract numbers. So that's why those steps, and that's important to put in.
Besides that, the angels are crying tears on the budget already.
No, it's really good to have this discussion, because sometimes we would think, oh, we look great, and then we come back in a few months. So it's nice to really know that we're prepared for anything that comes in. But we still look pretty good, right?
I like the idea of cushion as well. Just 300,000 seems like, well, they're all arbitrary numbers, right? But maybe a percentage of the estimated revenues, so it changes annually,
Yeah.
might be a better approach. Do we know how other towns are handling this, or is this unique for us?
It's unique.
It is, yeah, right.
Well, other communities have much larger
They have rainy day funds.
gaps between their cap and what they're actually levying. But it depends on the community. And I think probably some of those communities do have policies in place that they try and keep, maybe as a percentage, maybe as a dollar amount, the gap there. For a long time, we just didn't have the ability to do that. We were spending right up to the last dollar that we could. It's only been in the last few years that even if it's, we were doing 50,000 or 75 or 100, and then during the last couple that we've been able to manage to get to 300,000. I think there are probably some communities in the state that are hitting their levy limits, and I probably can pull the data together.
There's a couple of different schools of thought on that. There are some towns that feel that it's better to spend to your levy limit and leave it that way, because then the increases are always level. If you don't spend to your levy limit, you leave a buffer, and then you have a year where you need that buffer. You see a huge increase in the tax bills, because they've not only got up to 2.5%, but then they've gone up that buffer as well. So there are different schools of thought.
Yeah, and people don't typically remember when they were saved that money. They're only going to remember the sting of that increase. And so there's a lot of people that have that philosophy about you just always spend the levy, and then if you don't have to spend it all, it can then go into free cash. But that's not something that we've done over the last few years. And I think that I like the way that we're doing it now.
I like being able to go to town meeting and telling people we're not spending to the maximum we can spend. I think that gives us some credibility to do it.
I agree.
So So I guess it may, I can place a lot of assumptions into this, but as Kim mentioned earlier, at some point, or as Troy mentioned earlier, we have to get the message out to the departments at the end of this week. And the general message for a number of years has been, give us a level, it was, back in the harder times, it was level funded budget. Now we've been able to say level service budget. I would like, we've said to them, if you've got something pressing and above and beyond, please give us a separate budget. I would like some of that, but I also would like, I don't want to preliminarily discourage people at this point. I'm not saying that most people are going to get a yes in the end, one way or the other, but I think we have to have some dialogue between the finance committee and the departments to say, if we did have money, what would you want to try and do? Would you want to increase the hours of service? Would you want to do this? Would you want to do that?
I don't know, Charlie. No, I really.
That's me saying that.
Charlie, only because, listen,
Yeah.
we're finally breathing right now.
Right.
And so I don't want to set us up, I'm speaking for myself, I don't think we should set ourselves up to something that we can't sustain. As Melinda said, right now we're looking good, but we need to make sure that we're looking down the road. And, last year we did cut expenses again when we had that, what we thought was a large deficit. Then we ended up leaving more on the table than we expected. And so I wouldn't have a problem having us revisit those budgets of which we cut. Like, I know we cut some money in the police department, we cut, some department line items for expenses. Like, I think we could look at that because I think that did sting a bit,
Well, we shouldn't look at wish lists, we should look at needs.
Well, and
Some of the departments really need something to make them function better, and those are the ones that we should be looking at.
And I imagine there's discussion too, when the needs come back, what are actually needs and,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I'm fine having that discussion with departments.
Yeah.
I don't want to, tell them to send your wish lists or assume we have a bunch of extra money, but I think we have multiple departments that feel they truly have a need and we have to stack them. That's why we're here, right?
Or if there's an initiative, like I know that a few years ago there was an initiative to create a special ed program that was going to be cost savings eventually, that it was going to be able to retain students within the system so that we would then save long-term in outside tuition. So something like that we could look at, because even though it costs us money now, down the road, it could save us.
Ambulance billing.
Right, ambulance billing was another initiative that might cost, well, it will, no, it save us money. Yeah, right, it's gonna save us money in the long run. So those kinds of things, then certainly we need to look at. So I think, again, it's just my opinion, I think the message should be cost, level service. We know that we took some expenses away, if it's really stung, please let us know to justify it or whatever, but,
I think that's how we started this discussion. Pretty much level funded if you have some exceptional needs.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right?
Yeah.
Looking at the
Exactly.
line items at this point anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
it's a level service and, yeah.
And rather than, I think that's something to highlight in each of our discussions with our departments that we're liaisons to is, like Len said, not to sort of a everything you want wish list, but a kind of a short-term, asterisk on the request form this year for why you might be asking for a particular increase, maybe something that you didn't get last year that you really didn't need.
Right.
But then also to have that additional conversation of, let's talk about 5 or 10 years out. Are there things that you're thinking of that you're not going to put on the fiscal year 2020 budget, but that you want to start having conversations about, just to get it some kind of institutional memory going on different projects or different initiatives that people are thinking about.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like I can then take last year's letter and change it.
Change the dates.
It's fine by me. It's a ball. I've already got my wheel.
Rotary saving town, look at it.
Yeah, and it would be, I think, helpful, Charlie, by the next finance committee, if you could just plug
I
in
have a wish.
those numbers so that when we meet, we can kind of,
You all meeting, what, next year?
yeah. No, I think that, you'll send your letter out in the next week or so. Usually, typically, budgets are due by January 1st.
A few days after.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Why you try and do it the Monday after New
Yeah.
Year's.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
people won't be on.
Well, I,
Of course you would.
That's fine.
Oh, January 6th.
Are you sure?
I'll put in the new form.
So then just, so the members, the way the school committee budget comes in after that, those are the biggest things that drive.
Yes, it
And
is.
it all comes from the government budget, doesn't come in until the end of December.
Right, right, and we know that, and I know that we've had some discussions about, like, it really is hard for you guys to kind of guesstimate what SPED's gonna do, you really don't know. And again, the same with vocational education, where the application's open until April 1st, you have no idea how many students are gonna apply. So those things are why, you know, as I said earlier, once we get down to March, we start looking for those $20,000, like, to kind of cover those kinds of things, so. Yeah, yeah. It'll be good, we're gonna be good. Right?
And now that you got a new member, you can carry a heavier load.
And a mathematician.
Any other questions or comments about the general budget discussion? I know, like I said, it's really at a broad level right now, but.
We can tighten it up come January.
Thank you, Charlie, for making the sheet and everything, and thank you everyone for.
When are you meeting next? I'm not saying that tonight's close is. So is it going to be the 11th?
I don't think we have a race.
Technically, 11.
Maybe the 10th then, I suppose.
I think, oh, so this is what we were talking about last week. So we were talking about doing like 10 and 17.
Yeah, that's fine, I'm around.
Okay, because then it's 24 to 31.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd like to post, well, we're gonna post for the 10th and the 17th. Okay. All right, so.
Who's the guy with you?
I just wanted to introduce everybody to the new police chief.
Oh, great.
John Schaubs is here. Hi. And so,
He's not
John
new, he's an old person, he's not new.
His official, John started on November 13th, but we're having the formal swearing in tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Anybody who would like to come is more than welcome.
Be upstairs in the great hall.
Yeah, great hall.
Light refreshments will be served.
Very light, very light.
Very light. So,
Wait a minute, you told me that your aunt was gonna bring a good dish.
No, I said I want to bring a lot of people, so we gotta go light.
So I don't know if you just want to introduce your name.
Diane Roxton, Old Plymouth Street, Halifax.
Melinda Tarsi.
Bill McAvoy.
Montesino.
And then your liaison is Bill, I'm sorry, Len.
That's
Len is your liaison. And this is our superintendent, George Len.
Nice to meet
There's a
you.
meeting tomorrow morning at 9:30.
Huh?
There's a meeting tomorrow morning at 9:30 if you can come.
And
We sent
At
it to
the high
Ted.
school?
Yes, it went to Ted's email. I don't know if it gets
Is there
forwarded to
crime
you.
being committed at that time?
Yeah, I don't know if you have access to it. We didn't have your email. Oh,
All right.
sorry, I was hoping I could you. If you can make it,
Yeah.
we'd love to have you. We have a monthly meeting with the police chiefs.
Okay.
Do you need me to drive you?
I can find Silver Lake.
I'm gonna drive you to school.
I have GPS.
I was gonna drive you to school. Thank you, John. Sorry. Sorry,
Mom's gonna drive you to
sorry
school.
for the late notice.
And this is Fred, I'm sorry, Fred is the newest member. of the
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, I just go.
Yeah,
Joe?
oh, yeah.
How are you?
Yeah.
Good, how are
We
you?
met.
How are you?
He hasn't been sworn in, but he's been appointed.
Okay, all right, great.
So he's at 80% there.
So the next item on the agenda is mail. So we have a copy of the Beacon from the Mass Municipal Association if anyone would like to look at that. We have reserve fund transfers and line item transfers. We haven't received any reserve fund transfers.
Allow me to attend.
Nope.
Oh, sorry, that's another.
You want to just pause for a minute?
Room right out, weekend.
Just to stop talking for like 2 minutes.
I think with the website, if you want to post a website or a reserve line transfer or the template that I would
So
have.
where exactly on South Street are you?
I live at 299 South Street. It's after Franklin Street. You come down and there's that slight bend of the road.
Yeah, exactly.
We're right there.
I mean, we're 5 feet behind.
On the left. Going down.
I think either way,
So
it
you
would be
before
all
the
in
plumber's house.
Thank
Thank you for allowing me to attend the meeting. How do we make money for the when I get time to put the Christmas lights up, again, they're not as much as Steve is, but you won't see my house when you get the items. There's so many lights in the
So
house.
after the guy with the hanging ears,
Yes, keep going.
keep going, okay. After committee horses,
Yes. Yeah, that would be,
before the White House is gone.
yeah, you know, the really big expensive houses are right up the top, like right next to it.
So you're on the left-hand side, okay. Okay, yeah, my daughter lives right on our river, where the state police car is. Yeah, that's perfect. You think it would slow down that bad?
Yeah, you would think. I see it all the time. Yeah, a lot of times I'll walk down the river. It's about a quarter mile walk.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, good, thanks.
It'll be a great season. It'll be a great season, don't worry. It'll be good. It'll be good.
Nice seeing you. Happy holidays. Glad to see you, Joe.
Take care, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have the gavel? I was just saying, Charlie said that the website couldn't be a line item transfer or a special
It could be a reserve fund transfer. That's for things that are unexpected that we didn't know would happen.
You know, I never know, I know this street all the time, I never noticed the
Towards the end of the budget
decorations
cycle,
on the line.
Well, for Halloween, I go crazy.
Okay.
That's why we're
So
only
for
doing it
Christmas,
early in the spring.
I still have a lot, but I have little lights and envelopes and stuff like that. But for Halloween, it's
I think I know it, I didn't see it.
I'm getting a lot of people now that are actually stocking it because they want to walk through. So my wife's like, well, this is like no walking here.
The town.
Oh my God.
I don't like.
We didn't know that we were.
I said, honey, I don't want to go trouble in the town.
Yeah, you don't want someone to fall out.
You know, I know it's like.
Yeah.
It's just like this. I'll keep getting bigger and bigger.
Are you getting filled up like compared to Hayward?
Yeah, see, Steve's got me on there. I can't get that big. Well, he's got the nice leg too.
Yeah, yes, he does.
Yeah, I mean,
Because I'm
that
right
gives
across
you
the
the
pond,
effect,
I'm right
yeah.
there in Old Plymouth.
Yeah, so, I mean, I can't. So basically, it's like if you take Steve Hayward for Christmas, I'm the same for Halloween.
Oh, bang over there.
I mean, I do pretty good for Christmas, but Steve's got me beat on that one. So. But my wife wants me to actually build an entire Santa's village on the side of my house. So we'll see in a couple of years if I can
That's my hopes for Christmas.
Yes, yeah, so maybe at some point I'll be able to compete with Steve Hayward for Christmas decorations. But at the moment,
And he has the music too now.
yes, I know. Yeah. I've always stayed away from that. My wife's like, "Yeah, you really should do
Does
that."
Bill have a
So
copy
next
of
year-
the bill in his folder?
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm gonna go.
So like I already went ahead and
So
bought
one
like
of
a
you,
projector for
I'll
next year. We're
recuse
gonna
myself.
actually do, for Halloween, we're actually gonna do
Did you
outside
see that one down on 106 down with the ghosts?
Yep.
Is that all we have
Going
left?
all over here, the antique
Pretty
house.
much, unless there's public participation.
That was pretty cool.
My wife's saw this really cool. It projects onto pumpkins, like singing pumpkins. So
You don't scope well.
We need to sign the meeting minutes as well.
Yeah, those are the only two things. We do have meeting minutes and the
What do we
ATFC.
have left?
Meeting minutes and the ATFC bill. That'd be good. Read the calendar.
Let's get the Allison morning.
go back to work.
All right, so we're a little bit out of order on the agenda, but we just have a couple quick things left. So one of them is the meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2018. Everyone received a copy of these in their email. Thanks to Kathy for doing those for us. The members present were Len Tessino, Bill McAvoy, Dan Ruxton, and Melinda Tarsi. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2018?
Is this the only meeting minutes that we have to review?
So far, yeah. We're gonna have to, because of the change in personnel for the admin assistant position, we'll have to go back and make sure that there's a couple we'll probably have to transcribe between like Len and me and Kathy that will be short, but.
Did that other candidate show any interest in any other boards, Sandy?
I don't know.
I have to go meet
I don't know.
Adrian.
Yeah, Adrian.
Oh, work.
All right. Because I thought she checked off a few things every time.
So is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from Monday, October 22nd, 2018?
I will make a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any discussion, comments, or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so Len will sign those. Thank you again, Kathy, for doing those. And we will get caught up on the other ones, which between me and Len, we probably have them, and then we also have the video.
How many copies do we need?
Just one.
Just one copy?
Yeah. The next item is bills, and I'm actually going to recuse myself from this one, so one of the other officers can hold the vote.
You have a copy of it?
No, there's only the one bill in your folder.
Oh, okay.
All right, we have a bill here for Linda Tarsi, Association of Finance Committee meeting ticket in the sum of $45 with an expense code of $5732. It's a Finance Committee, the following named bills of the Finance Committee expense 01-131, again in the sum of $45. Do we have a motion to?
What's the sum?
$45.
45 even?
Yep.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the bill at $45.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye.
I abstain. Thank you. Okay. So we had the calendar. We said we're going to post for our next meetings for the month of December. We're not going to be on second and fourth Monday. Will be second and third Monday. So it will be December 10th and December 17th. Public participation. Also, the public left. Anything else, Charlie? Did we have to? Do you want to talk about the electronic voting and the other thing today?
I'll talk to my board tomorrow about it.
Okay.
So we're gonna review these.
I think he says he's gonna.
So we get the second best.
Likely. No, it comes up randomly, usually around town meeting, from some people who attend town meeting. And why are we doing various things, either to speed up or, I guess, make the votes more private, not have people trying to yell at each other with the voice votes, for example. It's like with the website, I'd like to get it. It's a situation that if we want to do something for this May, we'll have to have an article at the February town meeting. Because in general, what happens is you rent these devices. And, there are at least a couple of companies out there doing this type of work. There's no, and I've not really investigated it. I'm going to talk to Barbara. I'll talk to Dennis Carmen also. But I want to talk with you all. I want to talk to the selectmen to get I don't even know how much it costs. It's probably in the low thousands, I think. I don't know. But if there was interest, then I could move forward and say, we'll bring something back, not on February 1st, but bring something back obviously a lot earlier than that. Say, yeah, here are these two firms. If we get rent 300 devices, for instance, it's going to be this amount of money.
Do a lot of other towns use this, Charlie?
I think you're seeing, I don't want to say a majority, but it's an increasing number. As an example, the article I clipped was from Bourne out of the Cape. And what I wanted to do was just simply say, is there interest? If there's no interest, then I'll put it back in the box and let somebody else handle it.
I think there's been interest with the taxpayers at town meeting.
I think it'd be worth it to get a sense of what the cost is, and then we can at least be responsive and say that we did look into the cost. And I see in the article they talked about renting versus leasing devices, but then you get into the technological changes that are going to happen. So I think before you even got down that road, it'd be just interesting to know what that would look like cost-wise for us.
I'll talk to my board tomorrow, but it doesn't cost me. It costs very little for me to go out and a couple of years.
Okay.
I think it's worth looking into.
Thank you. And then we already sort of talked about the fire suppression.
Yeah, so right now with things, I am going to be talking to the selectmen tomorrow about this, in that Aviv and Association want to supplement their contract, which does make sense. I mean, the contract was written with the assumption we were going out to bid once, which was done in May.
Yeah.
There's obviously additional work that needs to be be done if we go out to bid again, which we have to. It's a reasonable amount, I think it's like $8,000, give or take. I'll talk to the selectmen about that. Because we appropriated the 977, it doesn't
Yeah.
break the budget, we're gonna go to town meeting in February anyway,
Yeah.
for whatever additional money we need. But I wanted to get, at least make sure you folks were in the loop. Where things stand right now is we're planning on going out to bid early in January, we'll have bids due in early February. I want to leave a gap between when the bids are due and when we go to town meeting, because I don't want a situation that the bids come in Thursday, we go to town meeting on Monday, and nobody has any time to ask any questions, so we
Yeah.
have time to do some education, because it's now going to be a couple of years of work between, I mean, several years now, because we actually, we're talking about the fire suppression system as a component of the bigger project. We separated it out
Yeah.
for various reasons back a couple of years ago, but people need to know the history and background starting from scratch again. And I want to leave time to be able to do that.
Bill?
Boys,
Oh, I thought you were
No,
gonna.
I
I had a quick question
That's my
about the
sort of finger.
liaison. Did we have the contact numbers for?
Oh, I think, I believe that Kathy circulated, a spreadsheet with everyone's contact, the different, department heads'
departments,
contact
yeah.
info. Either you did or Charlie did. Charlie did, okay. We can resend that out in email,
Yeah.
and we'll get another email group going to include, our newest
Yeah.
member and,
And include those, the contact
Adrian.
numbers.
I'm not sure I got that email. Charlie sent it out. I think.
I know I have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make sure, I'll check. And
Yeah,
if I
and
don't-
I'll put together a new email group for all of
Okay.
us. Yeah. Anything else that we need to handle tonight? Any other housekeeping stuff? All right. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Well, what is this?
We just talked about the fire suppression.
Okay. That was earlier.
Yeah, and it's just that they'll add a little bit to their contract because of that we're going out for bid again and all this kind of stuff.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
In that motion.
We're a little eager tonight, huh?
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:38 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone. We did a lot
Really
tonight.
good.
Is that ready?
Yeah. That was quick.
Could I
It was very
borrow
nice meeting
Melinda?
you.
Nice meeting you too.
Can't wait
We
till
we
next
don't need to
Halloween.
sign.